And now we turn to Daf Yud Gimel Amid Beis. Lo Kasha. We had a stira on Yud Gimel Amid Aleph between the Brisa of the Chachamim in Ha Karbon, in which the Brisa quotes the Chacham as saying it's not a neder because Ha Karbon means Bechaya Karbon, and our Mishnah, which says that Ha Karbon with a Hey is a valid neder when he adds Shochalacha. Ha, the Brisa, which validates the neder, the Omar Ha Karbon, not one word with a hey at the beginning as a prefix, but two separate words. And in that case, the Brisa says, let's go back to the Brisa, that the Chachamim are modeh to Rabbi Yehuda that it's not a valid carbon, because Ha Karbon means he's pointing to the life of the animal. But the Mishnah that says Ha Karbon is Asur, that's the Omar Ha Karbon. He doesn't say there's two words, but it's one word. My timer. So Gemara now explains the logic here. Why is it that Ha Karbon is not valid? Because Chai Karbon Koma. He means to refer to the Chai Karbon. Whereas so that's the case of the Brisa, correct? Just 1 second. Just 1 second. I'm sorry, I got to right. That the Brisa says that Ha Karbon is not valid. And the reason for that is that Ha Karbon means Chai Karbon. The Mishnah on the other hand is saying Ha Karbon. That which I eat you with is a carbon. But Ha Karbon, I guess because the emphasis is the animal, it means B'chai Karbon. Grass another kasha now. Ketani, in the Sefer, the Mishnah it says that if he says Le Karbon, Lo Chalacha Rabbi Meir Oser, which means that when he says Le Karbon, it means low carbon. And then he adds Masha Lo Ochalacha, implying that Masha Ochalacha should be a carbon. So low carbon and that which I won't eat from you, that which I will eat from you should be like a carbon. That's all based on the principle of Michal Lav Atashomeh Hen. Fact the Gemara, well, Leslie, the Rabbi Meir, Michal Lav Atashomeh Hen. Rabbi Meir is the one who said in the case of the Tanai of Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain, that we don't say Michal Lav Atashomeh Hen. So it means that you have to say that if you don't go chalutzim, you won't get the Eretz Yisrael. So in the case here, where he says La Karba Lo Ochalacha, which implies that Masha Ochalacha should be a carbon, then you are generating a valid neder based on the Michalav Tashomeh. He said that that which I don't eat, I won't eat, should not be a carbon, implying that which I will eat should be a carbon. That's called Michalav Tashomeh. And the Gemara answers on Rabbi Abba, Nasika Omer LeCarbon Yehei Lefichach Lo Ochalacha. As we said before, we interpret what he says is that it should be like a carbon, and therefore I won't eat from you. So it's explicit that he's prohibiting upon himself that which he would eat from his friend. And this leads us to the Mishnah, which will end the first parak of Nedarim. Ha'omer l'chavero, carbon pi midaber imcha, yodai osa imach, raglai maleches imach asu. Now this is a big problem here, this Mishnah, as the Gemara will point out. Because we're talking about a neder. And the difference between a neder and a shavua is exactly this case, where he prohibits dibur, he prohibits asiyas malach, he prohibits halicha. In all these cases, he is prohibiting a maisa ha'adam, a maisa gavra, which fits only under the category of shvua, because a maisa is called a davar she'ein bo mamish, and a neder and a shvua is called both on a davar she'ein bo mamish and a davar she'ein bo mamish. But a neder is only called a davar she'ein bo mamish because mitzvah chefta aleh. There's no chefta over here. Ureminu. So the Gemara asks, Chomer b'shvus Nedarim b'shvut. Chomer Nedarim Nedarim cholam al mitzvahs kirishut. So if a person says this sukkah should be also alai b'kona, or these tefillin should be also alai b'kona, or this matzah should be also alai b'kona, or this sukkah should be also alai b'kona. In all those cases, he's not allowed to be mekayim the mitzvah and sit in that sukkah and put on those tefillin and eat that matzah because the neder is chal on our mitzvah. Why? Because you cannot be mekayim your chovos gavra and your mitzvah with a chefta v'isura, and the chefta was nesar al yidei neder. Mashenki b'shvuos. If you take a shvua that I won't sit in the sukkah, you take a shvua I won't put on tefillin, I won't eat matzah. This is a shvua against the dvar mitzvah. And we have a principle of mushpa v'yomi bar Sinai, and therefore in shvua chal shvua. So there's no shvua to be mavatal and mitzvah. So that's the chumrah of Nedarim in comparison to shvuas. But let's go to the flip side. Chomer v'shvuas min Nedarim, right? Shashvuas chalos al davar sheyesh bo mamish ve'en bo mamish. You could prohibit a pa'ula, an action with a shvua. Now it's interesting that it says here in this brisa that a shvua could be chal on a davar sheyesh bo mamish. That's interesting because davar sheyesh bo mamish would be an isa chefetz, that would be a neder, not a shvua. But apparently, if he takes a shvua that he won't benefit from this object, so he's prohibiting, he's accepting upon himself an isa pa'ula vis-a-vis one object. So that means that the shvua is chal vis-a-vis a davar sheyesh bo mamish. But the real essence of the shvua is on the davar she'ein bo mamish, meaning on the pa'ula that he won't benefit from this chayfetz. Masha ain't came in a Nedarim, and Nedarim are only chal on what? On a davar sheyesh bo mamish. And yet our Mishnah says that if he prohibits dibur or his askus, the maisiyado, or halicha b'raglov, it's a neder. How could that be? It's a davar she'ein bo mamish. On Rabbi Yehuda the Omer, he declares, and we've seen this kind of Gemara many, many times. In Ksubis, for example, we saw it. The Omer ye aser pi lidiburi, or ye aser yodai l'maseim, ye aser raglai lilucham. In each case, he speaks about his body. He takes his peh, and when he says konam pi midaber imach, which again we're emphasizing the word pi, as the Gemara is going to say dekanami in a second. So pi means he's prohibiting my peh lidibur. I am prohibiting my peh lidibur means my peh becomes the chefetz of the isa, or I prohibit my hands for the askus of asiyas malach. I prohibit my raglayim, my feet, for hiluch. So piv, yada, v'raglav are all a davar sheyesh bo mamish, and the neder is chal. And they could not be the ketani pi medaber imach lo ketani shani medaber imach. If it was a lashon shvua in which he prohibited on himself the act of dibur, then he wouldn't have mentioned peh. He just would have said simply straightforward ani medaber imach. But pi medaber imach means he's prohibiting his peh, and yadai he's prohibiting his yadayim, and raglai he's prohibiting his raglayim, and that's a davar sheyesh bo mamish, as we saw in Rabbi Yehuda. Hadron alecha kol kinu. So now we begin the second Perek Beis Hashem, which addresses Nedarim that are chal and Nedarim that are not chal. So we said already in the past, and the Ran expands upon this at the very beginning of the Masechet, that a neder can be chal either through atfasa or without atfasa. Atfasa means he says dover also zeh also like karban, or he says alternatively without atfasa dover zeh also like. And this mission is going to establish the principle that we've been operating with all along, that atfasa requires a dover another and not a dover us. Like a karban is a dover another, and atfasa would be chal, but not nevelos and treifus, etc., etc. Says the Mishnah, the elu mutar, the following cases of Nedarim do not require ataras chacham; they're automatically mutar because the language that he used is not a valid neder. For example, chulin sha'ochalacha, that which I will eat from you should be chulin. So he's not generating any Easter upon himself. One wonders why the Mishnah had to bother telling you. But now we get to the issue of Dover Asa as opposed to Dover Nader, and the following list in the Mishnah includes anything that's Asa b'deraisa in ascending order. What do I mean by ascending order? It goes minakal el hachomor in terms of the nature of the Isa. For example, we start with kibasar chazir. Now, basar chazir is a davar asur. So if a person declares mashochel mimcha yehei alai kibasar chazir, that's not a valid neder because he's being matvisid in a davar asur. But keep in mind that in the hierarchy here, basar chazir is the lowest on the list because it's mutar b'hana. Technically, you're allowed to sell bacon, but it's also b'achila and not b'hana. Then we go to the next level, where a person says, that's already also b'hana. So that's a dover asur on a higher level. Now we get to an even higher level. He says that mashani ochelcha yehei ke'oros levuvim. Now, what does levuvim mean? These are hides of animals that were used as tikroves avodah zarah. What they would do is they would puncture holes in the oros kineged al-lev, against the heart of the animal. By puncturing these holes on the outer hides of the animal, they were able to extract the leg, to take out the leg. And the animal was still alive when they took out the leg, and they would take the leg and they would makriv it for avodah zarah. That's how I understood it. No. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Votziu mehem es halev v'odo chai lakrivo lavodas kochavim. The language here of the Masechet is very ambiguous. What do you mean lakrivo? Did makriv the lev? No, I don't think so. I think they were makriv the oros. Let me just see in the footnote, maybe he clarifies this. No. He says the opposite. They were makriv the lev, and the or becomes tikrovas avodah zarah. Why? Because since al yideshin nikvuas ha'or, hotzius halev, how are they able to extract the lev? By making these punctures in the outer skin of the animal. Is hukshar ha'or l'shimush. Oh, I see. In other words, the hides of an animal are usable, are royal l'shimush, only after the animal dies. And the animal's death was caused by the removal of the lev. Once they remove the lev and the animal died, the or becomes hukshar l'shimush. It becomes usable, and that gives it the status of takroves avodah zarah. So taking out the lev for the purpose of being makriv the lev for avodah zarah generates the status of the oros of tikroves avodah zarah, and it's aser b'hana. Now, why is this worse and more chamur than avodas kochavim? Let me just get that straight. Just give me a second. So he points out here in the footnote and apparently this is a sugya later on, that oros levavim as takrovos avodah zara en bohem bittul. In other words, general avodah zara means that it lends itself to bittul. So the guy could do a maisa of bittul, like he chops off a piece, and it loses its shem avodah zara. But in the case of tikrovos avodah zara, ein lehem bittul. So that makes it even more chamor. Then we go on to the next level of davar asur, even more chamor. Kinevelos utreifos. Why? Because nevela and treifa, or at least nevela, is more chamor in the sense that it is mitame es ochla. So it adds an element of tumah. And the word treifa is just agav lishna. Then we go on to the next level, and that's shkotzim uremosim, where shkotzim uremosim are mitame, even b'ke'adasha. You know, the veil is only mitame kigzayis, but the chumrah of the Easter of Tumah, of the Tumah of shkotzim uremosim, it's mitame even ke'adasha. Okay, but then he mentions kechalas Aaron u'chitrumaso. Now here there's a different chiddush already, because you might think that chalas Aaron trumaso is a davar nodur because the Easter, or shall I say, the status of chala and truma is only chal as a result of his kriyas shem. And you might think it's a davar nodur. So here the Mishnah is going on a different path already, the whole new paragraph, to machadesh that even something that requires a kriyas shem is still considered davar asur. And we discussed this in the past based on the Rosh, that the Iser Tevel was chal even before the Hakdoshas Peh, that Rosh. Mutter. In all the above cases, the neder is not chal. You don't need hataras chacham because these are dvarim that are not osur machmas nidro, but rather the Torah generates the Easter in and of itself. So atfasa is not meaningful in that which the Torah prohibits because the davar asur are not a davar nod. However, ha'omer le'ishto harei at olai ke'ima, you should be asura to me, my wife, like my mother. So he's generating an Easter upon himself of tashmish me in ishto, like as if she was his mother, who's an Arab, of course. The neder is not chal. Why? Because he's being matvis in a davar asur min haTorah. So you would say, therefore, based on all that we discussed, there's no need to be mativ in neder. However, the halacha is, and this is going to be a Gemara later on at Daf Yud Daled, that in case of an Amoretz, we're not going to say that the neder is muter me'ela, but rather posken lo Pesach. The Rabbanan are going to be machmir, and they're going to acquire a Pesach in order to be matir this neder. And not only do they require a Pesach to be matir, but an additional chumrah they piled up. It's got to be mimokom acher, which means the following. We're not going to say to him, look, if you would know that you're undermining the covenant of your mother, would you have taken this neder? That you are being she'ein kvodi mecha b'neder zeh shitfasta ba. But rather we have to find a different kind of a Pesach. Now, why are the Rabbanan being machmer in these cases when midoraisa, you don't need hataras nedarim, the neder is not chal because he was matzis in the davar asur, shelo yakel rosho lekach. If we're going to allow him, in a case where he's matter as each of a davar asur, to have tashmish to his wife, and we don't require hataras nedarim, he's going to come to the matir, even in a case where he would be madir her with a davar nod. He's not sharp enough or scholarly enough to appreciate the difference between a davar nod and a davar asur. So therefore, even though he's matvis in a dobro asur keimo, nevertheless we're going to require ataras chacham. So Gemara says the following: Taima. The reason why in the first case in the Mishnah chulin sha'ochal lecha the neder is not chal, the Amar chulin sha'ochal lecha, which means that which I will eat from you should be chulin, and chulin is mutter. The implication is ha Amar, if he says to his friend lechulin sha'ochal lecha with a lamed as a prefix, is mashma lo lechulin lehevi, that which I will eat for you should not be like chulin, but rather it should be like a carbon. Eliki carbon. So we're applying the principle of Michal Lav Atashemei Hein. When he says lo chulin, it means it should be a carbon. Mani Masnisin. Who is the author of Mishnah? Rabbi Meir, if you're going to attribute our Mishnah to Rabbi Meir, that's impossible. Why? Leslie, Rabbi Meir does not accept the principle of, and here we're turning to Daf Yudalit, Michal Lav Atashomei Hein. So Rabbi Meir holds that if somebody says Lav, we're not going to derive from that Hein. So you can't say that when he says Lo Chulin, it means carbon. The Ella Rabbi Yehudi. So you're going to have to say by process of elimination that if you're applying the principle of Michal Lav Atashomei Hein, that Lo Chulin means carbon, then you must be riding on the shoulders of Rabbi Yehuda, affecting Gemara. Hainu Reisha. We had the Mishnah on Daf Yudom and Beis that if a person declares La Chulin Sha'ochal Lecha, the neder is Chal, and the Gemara there explains that is Rabbi Yehuda who holds that La Chulin is Lo Chulin, which means carbon, which means Michal Lav Atashomei Hein. Why did the Mishnah feel compelled to repeat that which we had already? And the Gemara's first answer, the second answer we'll see B'li tomorrow, is either the Ktani can Sar Chazir or Kavos Kochavim is Lachi Ktani Chulin. In other words, once he's listing already those cases where the neder is not Chal and there's no need for Ataras Nedarim, so he already by and by mentions the case of Lachul. So the Gemara now is going back to Rabbi Meir. One second. Again, Chulin Sha'ochalecha. Implying that Lachulin is a neder, is a valid neder. Because Lachulin Michal Lav Atashomei Hein is kikarbon. We had it already. And this is Rabbi Yehuda who applies the principle that Lachulin is like carbon because Michal Lav Atashomei Hein. The Mishnah repeats itself. The Diktani, once he's giving you the list of those situations, those Nedarim that are not Chal, he mentions this as well. Just 1 second, that doesn't make any sense. 1 second. Oh, right. In other words, the Mishnah is not coming to tell you that the diuk that we had that Chulin is a valid neder. The Mishnah is only telling you that Chulin sha'ochal lecha is mutter. That which I eat for you is Chulin is mutter. And it's listed here, agav, the other cases in the Mishnah where the neder is not chal. So B'li neder, this is where we'll pick it up tomorrow with Ravina Omar, and we'll go over the Gemara's Kash again, and we'll see Ravina's answer to this Kash. Okay, then let me wish you a great day.